Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
While they're out on vacation, I'm going to have to make some tough choices to meet the challenge, with or without Congress.
All right, folks, Barack Obama last week threatening, telegraphing, if you will, if you were a boxer, telegraphing his punch to come, that he is going to sign an executive order probably granting so-called amnesty to millions and millions of people. Joining us now is Patrick J. Buchanan. He is the author of The Greatest Comeback, How Richard Nixon Rose from Defeat to Create the New Majority. Also, of course, former presidential candidate. And welcome, Pat.
Good talking with you, Steve.
Always good talking to you. All right, so this, he's making no bones about it. He's telling you what he's going to do. He's threatening it. He's announcing it. He's not threatening it. He's saying, I'm going to do this. We all know he's going to do it. So what's going to happen after he does it?
Well, I'm sure they're thinking in the White House exactly what the immediate consequences will be if he does the executive order creating an amnesty for at least 5 million illegal aliens. I think they're telling him it's going to put in peril probably his red state Democrats, but it will energize his base. It will send La Raza, into a standing ovation. And it will divide the country and polarize the country, and he will be accused again of being an imperial president. So I think he's probably considering, Steve, whether if he does it, whether he should do it in September when it will become the issue in the fall campaign, or wait until after the election when it's 2 years before the next election and he gets the benefits of it and the Republicans can do nothing about it politically. So my guess would be that what I wrote about in my column last week, that he will move on it in September as sort of a big, decisive, historic action on his part.
Right, and it will further serve to, as you alluded to in different language, but as you wrote about in your column, U.S. becoming Balkanized, it will further move forward that Balkanization of the United States, correct?
Well, that's right. I mean, clearly in terms of assimilation of folks, it's obviously, as I've said before in more graphic terms, it's easier for Americans to assimilate folks like British who have the same language, by and large culture, history, we all understand it, than it is folks from many places in the third world. But there's no doubt about it, folks from the third world countries or Asia, Africa, Latin America, they tend to vote somewhere between 70 and 90% Democratic when they come into the country. One reason being many are poor, many don't have high levels of education, they're highly dependent on the social welfare benefits of state and local governments, and therefore they are pro-government. So I think that Obama sees this, as part of his transformation of America into a different country entirely. And then you get into my own views, which are, I don't know how much diversity a country can handle before it loses all of its unity.
And that is, I believe, one of the ways that Obama sought to fundamentally change America. And he is doing just that with this impending action. If he does it, it'll be a major step towards doing that.
Sure, it'll be transformational in the sense that your 5 to 8 million folks will be married, their children become natural citizens, they will be on the path to citizenship. If they, marry folks from back home, bring them into the country, you will have a overall, knock-on effect of more and more millions of folks coming in who are natural-born Democratic voters. I mean, the illegal aliens have been called undocumented Democrats for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely,
Right.
Absolutely. Why would he do it? I mean, I know you said it would motivate La Raza, rah, rah, rah. But I just think that if anything, the majority of the country would be against it. So it would motivate more people to come out and vote, like you said, and put in danger those red state senators and others. So why on earth would he not just wait until after the election? And what's a few months?
Well, he might. That's exactly what they're going to be considering there in the White House. But if he does this dramatically here in September, it will be enormously big and enormously historic, I think. And he might figure that his party is not energized now. It's going to lose the Senate anyhow. And there's a possibility that this will really bring out his base in a way that was not considered before. But I agree with you. I think, in my fault is really with the conservatives for the last 25 years when they had the presidency in both houses of Congress. They did nothing to secure the border, although some of us have been arguing about it for years. And now it appears they're not going to get it under control. But what Obama will do is clearly advance the date when the demography of many of those border states changes, and it becomes impossible for some of the governors and those running for the Senate in these border states to say secure the border because of the backlash against them in the minority communities.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It just seems ridiculous, but there is a method to his madness. That you can always be sure with him. Let me ask you this. Kind of off the beaten path here. How do you feel about bringing these Ebola-infected doctors back to the U.S.?
I'm of two minds. I am a believer that, we take care of our own people. But at the same time, if they can be taken care of, and this is really as contagious or infectious a disease that could really spread, it might have been better to send the best of our if they volunteered, the best medical people we've got to treat them over there until this disease got to the point where it was no longer infectious or contagious before you brought them home. So I'm really of two minds on this, but my best feeling is what you got to do, the ultimate thing you have to work for, and this is true of the immigration issue, we got to take care of our own people first. We got to think about their health, security, safety, our own country first. I mean, it's wonderful to have pity, for example, and to feel for folks and to help them out, but your first priority of the father of a family is to take care of the family. Yeah,
couldn't agree more. All right, let me ask you about, it's now August. We're inching ever so much closer day by day to the 40th anniversary of the resignation of Richard Nixon. Of course, your book talks about, not that, but talks about the previous campaign by Richard Nixon and how that all led to what it led to. But what do you remember about that day, when that evening when he resigned, and then when he flew off the next day at effective noon when the resignation took place?
Well, I was one of the 5 at Camp David who got and analyzed the tape of June 23rd, and we knew that Nixon, whatever the June 23rd tape said, Nixon had seen it before, and he had continued to say things that were not true, and so we decided up there to drop the tape on Monday, and the firestorm would ensue, and by Tuesday would have demands for resignation, and we felt by Friday we had concluded Nixon would have to resign. And so, and I talked to him when I was at Camp David. I didn't urge him to resign, but he had Ray Price working on that speech by Tuesday, working on his resignation speech. And I remember standing behind the TV cameras over in the East Room. I didn't get in early and sit down, but standing behind the TV cameras when he delivered that the final farewell to the staff, and walking out and watching him give the wave before he got on the helicopter. It was a very sad day, because I'd been with him at the very beginning back in 1965 when he started back up the hill from those horrendous defeats and to JFK and to Pat Brown and the '64 disaster, as he started back up to put that party together. And what had he done, Steve? He had not only enabled himself to win the presidency, going through all that hellish 1968 of riots, assassinations, and campus disorders, and all the rest, to create a new majority, a 49-state victory in 1972, and now it was all washed away.
Yeah, no, very, very, very moving. I could imagine, and very sad for so many people. Would he have been impeached if he didn't resign?
Well, the House Judiciary Committee had voted impeachment, and it would have been pro forma because, well, frankly, one of the reasons he was impeached is because all the instruments of power, even though Nixon was president, all the instruments of power in the media, the bureaucracy, the Congress, were against him. He first president since Zachary Taylor not to have a single house of Congress on his side during his presidency. And so I think it was a foregone conclusion he would have been impeached by the House. And when Goldwater and some of the others came down from the Senate, although Nixon had already decided to resign and was working on a speech, they were telling us that Nixon's vote in the Senate had fallen to 20, and he needed 67 to survive. And
right.
The question was, what do you want to put the country through it when the outcome is certain? You know, even one of my great heroes, Robert E. Lee, at some point said, you have to go and get terms from the opposing general.
And in your mind, briefly, was what Nixon did worse than anything Obama's done so far?
Well, what Nixon did was basically, when you take a look at it in the raw, he did not know they had a break in the Watergate. He didn't know about it. He was stunned by what those dopes do, but he made some early, quick, foolish decision to contain the investigation and not to come forward, and he did it out of misplaced loyalty, in my judgment, to John Mitchell, whom he had prevailed upon to come to Washington and who was unfortunately involved or authorized the thing, and he tried to save his friend. And then he did not come clean quick enough, and then he did not burn the tapes. So it was indecisive. But, I mean, Bill Clinton committed perjury under oath.
Right, right.
And, of course, he survived because they had the machinery in Congress to save him.
Right. Pat, great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much, and always a pleasure.
You take it easy, Steve.
You too. Pat Buchanan, ladies and gentlemen, and the book, The Greatest Comeback, How Richard Nixon Rose from Defeat to Create the New Majority. All right, folks, you know what's next. You know it. You love it. You got to have it. It's Gimme 5, and you're not going to want to miss this one coming up on the Steve Malzberg Show.